Pisa says, wow, Hikaru looks 31 again. Is that meant that I look younger, or does that mean that I look older again because I have some facial hair after 2 days? So yeah. Alright, you guys, so this is my round 10 game against Leinier Dominguez. Did I say Wesley So by accident? I might have. But going into this game, just to give you guys a look at the standings or what was going in my mind. I was on 6.5 points out of 10. Leinier was also on 6.5 or 6.5 out of 9. And Fabiano was on 6 out of 9 playing white against Lenderman. Nobody else was really close, so at this point it was down to 3 players. And I figured Fabiano would win with the white pieces against Lenderman. Always seems like a pretty logical assumption. So for that reason, I figured that basically I had to try to press Leinier as best I could. If I didn't get anything, so be it. And then just take my chances with black against Jeffrey. But I wasn't going to go super insane because Leinier obviously is a very strong player, and the one time that he did win with black was against Sam Sevian, when Sevian overpressed in the same opening variation that we're going to look at right now. So game went d4 d5, c4 e6, knight c3, knight f6. I played knight f3. Leinier played c5, which he'd been sticking with for the whole event. I think he played this in every single round, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think he played this in I think Leinier played this against Verusian in round 1. In round 3 he played it against who did he play against? I don't know who he played against in round 3, but he definitely played against another person. Then very late in the event in round 7, I think it was against Sam Sevian, he also played this. So this opening is known as a semi-terrace. Basically, black tries to exchange all the pieces while giving up the center, essentially saying that even though white has a nice big center here, because there's so few pieces on the board, black is completely fine, and all endgames will be fine for black. So here I played, or bishop b4, bishop d2, takes, castles. Here I played rook c1. First start, trying to do something here. Leinier played b6. So here I played bishop to d3. Just developing the bishop, put it on this diagonal, and try to castle. Leinier played bishop b7. Here I played queen to e3. Basically, queen e3 is a move trying to figure out where black's knight is going. Is he going to c6 or d7 here? And whichever square he goes to, I'll react accordingly. I also have ideas like in the game with bishop b1, queen d3, but also more practically, the queen also defends the pawn on d4 if black does go knight c6. So, so here, Leinier did play knight to c6. I castled. Leinier played rook to c8, and now I played bishop to b1. Sort of multi-purpose move here. Essentially, I might want to play e5 and open the diagonal and go knight g5, knight e4, or knight h7. Maybe put the queen on d3. Also, I might just want to put a rook on d1 and play for d5 as well. So bishop b1 is sort of just a calm move, avoiding threats against d4, and maybe opening up the diagonal later on for queen d3. So here, Leinier played queen to e7. I played rook fd1 after a long think. It's also very hard here to play this position because it's not really clear. I mean, you can maybe play h4 and it looks like you're gaining a lot of space, but you have to be mindful of this very nice e5 move, closing this long diagonal to h7. And then at d5, just knight a5, knight c4, knight d6. And with this closed diagonal, this bishop starts to look really stupid. Black has a majority here. He can also maybe go like, not that, but maybe he can trade and put the rook on c8 at some point. White should be okay, shouldn't be in a lot of trouble, but it's not really clearly better for white. So h4 allows e5. So I concluded here the moves that I could look at were h4, rook d1, the natural move if I find nothing better, or even maybe e5. These are really the only 3 moves that I considered. Pisa says, wow, Hikaru looks 31 again. Is that meant that I look younger, or does that mean that I look older again because I have some facial hair after 2 days? I'm not sure what that means, Fizette. So, for that reason, after h4 realizing he had e5, I concluded that rook d... Or not, sorry, concluded. There's also e5 here. But e5, knight b4 here. It's Legend 3 says we can't hear the music. I'm not playing music right now, you guys. So knight b4 looks logical. Knight g5 looks very dangerous here. But after black plays h6, it's not really clear how to follow up, because the knight on b4 prevents queen d3, which is a natural square to try and mate from. I can't go to e4 because of the bishop. So for that reason, I have to move my knight somewhere. And if I play knight h7, I think black can trade and play rook c8 here. And without rooks on the board, any of these ideas with knight f6 and queen h6 aren't going to work. So why do I have the headset on? I have the headset on just because it's my normal setup. So after rook c8, with only one set of rooks on the board, this knight is probably going to get trapped. The knight can go to d5 here. And for that reason, it's very, very bad. This knight on h7 is completely dead and out of the game. So this makes no sense. If I play knight e4, there are a few things black can do. First of all, I think black can probably just trade. If queen e4, black can play g6. And again, this bishop on b1 is now going to get dominated by the knight because it has access to d5. There are no real threats on the h5. If I play h4, black can even just play h5 to prevent h5 and mate on h7. And so for that reason, it's very, very compromising, because if I play knight e4 and get the knight to d6, it's very good. But after takes g6, I just didn't see any way to play against knight d5, knight c3. Now the pawns are coming. I've got these very fixed and ugly pawns on d4, e5, and it's very, very bad for very bad for white here, potentially in the long run. So I mean, maybe white is okay, but I thought there was a lot of danger to playing e5 structurally, because you fix the pawns. If black gets a knight to d5, it's very, very bad. Someone says, can you go h4, h5, g4? Yeah, but the problem with g4 here is black just takes on h4, and if I take, he trades. If I go a3, then black puts the knight on the lovely d5 square. Knight c3 is coming, a3 is loose, h4 is loose. No mating threats. The bishop and the queen are biting on granite here. So this is very, very good for black strategically. So for that reason, I played rook fd1 after quite a deep think. Here, Leinier played knight a5. Now again, white's got the big center, but black's main objective here is to try and exchange rooks so that there are never any attacking ideas, and it's very thematic. It's worth noting here, e5 is also playable, but after d5, knight a5, there might be some tricks with d6 and d7 coming. Queen e6 trade. Well, maybe d7, rook d8, queen. Maybe not. Maybe actually d7 first, because now if trades takes rook d8, there's queen c7 here, hitting the rook and hitting the pawn on e5. And if you play like rook d8, maybe rook c7, followed by queen c3, and this pawn, these rooks are passive. The knight and bishop are a little bit off sides here, and I can go queen c3, put pressure on the pawn, maybe long-term a3, bishop a2 as well. So this should be very, very good for white. So that's why Leinier did not play e5. He played knight a5. So here I played h4. Thank you, Chess Gremlin, for subscribing with a tier 1 sub. Leinier played rook takes c1. Played rook takes c1 here. Leinier played rook c8. We traded. And now I played queen f4. Basically, again, the only idea that white is playing for here is to try and create a pass d pawn, and in the process open up the diagonal for very similar ideas on h7 or even on f7. So here Leinier played h6, and here I made a mistake. Here I played bishop d3, which in fact gives away any chance of trying to win. The only possible way of trying to win was with g4. And the reason that g4 makes sense is because I want to play g5 and soften up this kingside pawn structure here. So like if black plays like he would like to play in the game, knight c6, and I can play g5. If h5, I can always play d5 here. And now I've opened up the diagonal. Eventually d6 is coming. I've got g6 as well. And black definitely has some issues in this position. Oh, why not queen b8? If I play queen b8, black can go queen b7, try to trade the queens. If queen d6, black just goes queen d7. Again, trying to force queens off the board here. If queens come off, black is always going to be fine here, because then it's just an endgame. And with two center pawns, that's never going to be enough to win an endgame. So for that reason, g4 definitely is the right try. If black plays queen d8, kind of like what he does in the game, then I can play g5 takes, and if knight c6, maybe I can play d5, maybe even knight e5, or maybe just maybe even g6 here looks strong. Takes e5, takes, or knight g5, and queen h4 and queen h7. This looks very interesting. Maybe it's not anything special for white, but it's potentially very scary for black. But the problem is, in the game I played bishop d3 relatively quickly, thinking I could just put the bishop back. If knight c6, there's always d5 or bishop b5. But here Leinier found a very good move. He found queen to d8, which I completely overlooked. Basically what I overlooked here was that after queen to b8, black can play knight c6, queen a8, not knight takes d4 takes queen d4, because queen takes c8 would be check. But the black here can play bishop d7. If queen b7, black plays queen c8, and now I have to exchange the queens, and now black has no issues whatsoever here. So for that reason, queen d8 is a very precise move. It's worth noting also here, if I try to do what I wanted to do originally in the game with g4, knight c6, g5, it doesn't work, because after takes, black can take the pawn on d4, and with the bishop on d3, there are going to be a lot of threats. So for that reason, after queen d8, it's already very hard to play for white. Here I played h5. I mean, I guess I don't see any other moves that make sense. Like g4 is the only move that really is a try, but it's still probably very little, even if black plays a move like bishop b7 and knight c6, or black plays maybe knight c4 even here. It's going to be very hard to get anything much going on. So for that reason, g4 would have been better than bishop d3, but I played bishop d3. Leinier played queen to d8. So here I played h5. Leinier played knight to c6. Played queen c1. It's also worth noting, one other annoying thing here is that, like, if I try to go for bishop b5 here, this doesn't work because black can trade. Queen to b8. So it looks good. I'm hitting the bishop and the king. If black plays, but black can play queen d8. If bishop a6 to try and win the bishop because of the pin on the queen and eventually the king, black can play queen to d1. If bishop f1, black can just go queen d7, bishop a6, queen d1 to make a draw. And if I try king h2 here, black can take. King g1, there's always queen d1 making a draw. If I go king g3, black can check. King f3, black checks. If king e3, black checks. If I go king d2, then black has queen a5 check, hitting the king and winning the bishop. If I go king e2, black can check. If king e3, queen c5 check. If I go king f, or not king f1, if I go king e1, black goes queen b1 check, king d2, queen takes a2 check, and he picks up the bishop on a6. So for that reason, all these ideas don't work with bishop b5, or if they do, you can still make a draw, but not more than that. So that's why I played queen c1 here. Not well, you don't have to go king f1. You can always make a draw, but I'm giving you guys an example. So you can always make a draw here many different ways. For example, you can go bishop f1, queen d7, bishop a6. But I'm just giving you an example of what the possibilities are. So that's why I played queen to c1 here. King to f1 is mate. If I go king h5 before bishop b5, no, but okay. So even to give you another example, let's just say I played like g3 here. I think it still doesn't work if I remember, because bishop b5. How does it go? Well, maybe not. No, sorry. The line I'm thinking of is this one. I was thinking of g4, knight c6, bishop b5. But even this doesn't work. So after takes, queen b8, black can play queen to d1 check, king h2, and then he goes queen c2, protects the bishop, but he also hits f2 here. So again, I can probably play bishop a6, I think, and after takes, king h3 check, king h2, and it's a draw. It's worth noting black does not have a check on f4 because of the queen. He also does not have a check on f1 because of the bishops after check. Maybe queen e3 and he can start to stairwall it. I don't know, but at any rate, this was the other line I saw, which is why g4, it was so painful to know that g4 was not going to work. And also after g4, knight c6, if I play queen e3, black can also maybe try e5, because now these pawns on g4 and h4 are extremely brittle here. If I take, then he takes with the bishop, he's hitting the knight, then the pawn falls. H4 is also under attack here, so this is really, really bad. So G4 doesn't work, so I finally decided it's just time to bail out with H5, knight C6, queen C1. Leinier played bishop B7. Now I played queen to C3, supporting the pawn on D4. Leinier played queen D6. I played A3 to stop knight B4. Maybe bishop B1 is still an idea. Bishop B1, queen D3, and E5 with check, check, and take all these pawns. But it's a little bit too slow, and Leinier correctly played knight to E7. Also a very good move, because now that I play E5, he can play queen C6, or even queen D7. And again, this knight is getting to D5, and it's very, very shaky for white. With this pawn at H5, there always are ideas with knight F4, knight H5 too. So it's quite dangerous. So here after A3, Leinier played knight to E7. I played knight to E5, trying to put the knight on a good square here. If F6, I can go knight G6, and then if I get this wedge on G6, this nice pawn, the king is a little bit loose, and there are going to be dangerous ideas trying to put pressure on the pawns on E6, or go D5 and E5 as well. So for that reason, here Leinier did not go for this correctly. He decided to play knight C6, and now here we ended up repeating moves. Worth noting that if I don't repeat moves here, I can end up in a lot of trouble here, because black can play like queen C6. If he gets these pawns ever rolling, it's very dangerous as well. And so at this point, I decided it wasn't worth the risk. I didn't see any real practical chances to try and win this endgame. Also, if I try to go into this endgame, this is also very dangerous because these pawns are very fast, but also I've got this pawn at H5 that is on a light square that can be attacked by the bishop. And you'll note black's pawns for the most part here are on dark squares, so my bishop cannot attack the pawns. So it's probably still a draw, but this one there is some risk going into this. So for that reason, after knight e5, we agreed to a draw by repetition, and that put us both on 7 points out of 10, and 7 points out of 10, and both on +4. Meanwhile, while we were drawing this game, Fabiano got a winning position almost instantly in his game against Alex Lenderman, which put him on +4 as well. So going into the final round, that meant that 3 of us were on +4, 7 points out of 10. Myself, Fabiano Caruana, and Leinier Dominguez. So this game was a little bit shorter than the other two, and the last one's obviously going to be very long as well. And so for that reason, I'm going to take a quick break once again, and I will be back for with the final game from the US Championship, the very epic last round game against Jeffrey Shorley. Actually, one last quick thing I noticed. Bumblebee says, is it dangerous to bring the knight to E3 instead of repetition? I can't bring the knight to E3 because if I try to go knight C4, I hang the pawn on D4. So that's the one last reason I can't do anything.